My name is Emily, and until recently, I thought my life was ordinary. I'm 28 years old, working remotely as a graphic designer, and living in a small house I inherited from my late grandmother. It wasn't luxurious, but it was cozy and filled with memories. For years, it had been a haven of peace, until my sister-in-law Vanessa arrived. Vanessa was married to my older brother, Ryan. He worked as a mechanical engineer and had been offered a 2-year contract overseas. Vanessa, however, chose not to accompany him, citing the excuse that the unfamiliar environment wouldn't suit her. Instead, she moved into my house, saying she needed somewhere close to her work. I wanted to refuse her, but she managed to charm my parents, who pressured me into agreeing. From the moment Vanessa walked through the door, suitcases in hand, I knew my life was about to change. She breezed into the living room, her expensive perfume trailing behind her, and casually declared, "This place has potential. I'll just make a few changes to liven it up." I'd barely managed to say hello before she started moving furniture around, as if she owned the place. At first, I tried to tolerate her. After all, she was family. But Vanessa's behavior quickly crossed boundaries. She monopolized the common spaces, criticized my decor, and often invited her friends over without consulting me. Each morning, she would waltz into the kitchen with an air of superiority, commenting on my appearance. "Emily, have you even looked in the mirror today? You're young. You should try harder." Her words stung, but I bit my tongue. The worst part was her constant belittling of my work. Vanessa was a corporate lawyer and made it clear she saw no value in my creative career. "Working from home must be so relaxing," she'd say with a smirk. "Do you even make enough to cover your bills?" The disdain in her voice was unmistakable. I tried explaining the importance of my projects, but she dismissed me with a wave of her manicured hand. One evening, after Vanessa had a particularly loud phone call with one of her friends, I decided I'd had enough. I confronted her in the living room. "Vanessa, I need you to respect this house and my space. This isn't a hotel." She looked at me as if I were an insect she could crush. "Emily, don't overreact. I'm helping you by paying rent, aren't I?" Her condescending tone made my blood boil. Vanessa's true nature became evident over time. She wasn't just disrespectful, she was manipulative. She'd tell my parents exaggerated tales about how difficult I was, painting herself as the victim. My parents, not seeing her day-to-day behavior, often sided with her. "Emily, she's trying her best. You should be more accommodating," they'd say. One day, Vanessa's cruelty reached a breaking point. I had spent weeks working on a freelance project for a prominent client. The deadline was approaching, and I was burning the midnight oil to ensure everything was perfect. Just as I was finishing the final touches, Vanessa barged into my workspace, demanding I help her rearrange her wardrobe. "Vanessa, I'm in the middle of something important," I said, trying to keep my frustration in check. She scoffed. "Important? Please, Emily. Your little hobby can wait." Her words felt like a slap in the face. This wasn't just a hobby. It was my livelihood. "Vanessa, this is my job. I need to focus," I said firmly. She rolled her eyes and stormed out, muttering under her breath. Minutes later, the Wi-Fi went out. I rushed to check the router, only to find it unplugged. Vanessa stood nearby, feigning innocence. "Oh, did I do that? My mistake," she said with a smirk. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized I couldn't live like this anymore. Vanessa's presence was toxic, and it was affecting my work, my mental health, and my sense of peace. I decided it was time to take action. The next morning, I began documenting her behavior. Every rude comment, every instance of sabotage, I recorded in a journal. I also started saving receipts and emails to prove my financial independence. My plan was simple: gather enough evidence to confront her and, if necessary, involve my parents. As the days passed, I noticed something peculiar about Vanessa. She'd often leave the house late at night, dressed to the nines, and return in the early hours of the morning. I couldn't help but wonder what she was up to. My curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to follow her one evening. Vanessa drove to an upscale restaurant where she met a man I'd never seen before. They laughed, shared drinks, and seemed very comfortable with each other. It was clear this wasn't a casual meeting. I snapped a few photos from a distance, unsure of what to do with them, but certain they could be useful later. A week later, Vanessa's behavior took an even darker turn. She began spreading rumors about me to her friends, accusing me of being lazy and ungrateful. She's just jealous of my success.
I overheard her say during one of her phone calls. It was the final straw. I decided to confront her with everything I had. One evening, as she lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone, I walked into the room with my journal and the photos. "Vanessa, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. She glanced at me, unimpressed. "Can it wait?" "I'm busy." "No, it can't," I replied, placing the photos on the coffee table. Her eyes widened as she saw them. "What? What is this?" she stammered. "I think you know exactly what it is," I said. "You've been lying to everyone, manipulating my parents, and treating me like garbage. I've had enough." Vanessa's face twisted with anger. "You have no right to invade my privacy," she yelled. "And you have no right to make my life miserable," I shot back. "This ends now. Either you leave this house or I show these photos to Ryan and our parents." For the first time, Vanessa seemed genuinely afraid. She tried to argue, to defend herself, but the evidence was undeniable. Reluctantly, she agreed to move out. It took her 2 weeks to pack her things and find another place to stay. During that time, she avoided me, her once confident demeanor replaced by tension and unease. When Vanessa finally left, the house felt lighter, as if a dark cloud had lifted. I cleaned every corner, erasing any trace of her presence. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. My parents, initially upset by her sudden departure, eventually understood the truth when I shared my side of the story. Ryan returned from his overseas assignment a few months later. When I told him everything, he was shocked but grateful. "I had no idea she was capable of such things," he said, shaking his head. "Thank you for standing up for yourself, Emily. I'm sorry you had to go through that." Vanessa's departure marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life. I poured my energy into my work, gaining more clients and recognition for my designs. I even started a blog, sharing my experiences and offering advice to others, dealing with toxic relationships. Looking back, I realized that Vanessa's presence, as difficult as it was, taught me the importance of setting boundaries and standing up for myself. My house became a sanctuary once more, filled with creativity, laughter, and peace, and for that I was grateful.